No.
It's
Mr. Trapp, the witness is you. Ms. Orr, you have to wait.
we spliced this together. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Sergeant Goodwin.
Yes, sir.
When we spoke just before the lunch break, I had asked you a question about the appearance of the clothing of the individual in the video, how you identified as Mr. Ross, and that you didn't identify, you couldn't tell, at least from looking at the video, that there was any evidence of an altercation or blood or anything like that. You recall that?
Are you referencing the Petro video?
Yes, sir, the Petro video.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you had made a reference that based on the information from the autopsy, there were gunshots to the back of both individuals. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
But you recall from the testimony that was given to us here in court and from the information you recovered or received from the autopsy that there were shots to both of these individuals in the front. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And that several of those wounds to the front hit major arteries. Is that correct? Or do you recall?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I know it.
I know you're not a doctor.
One of the shots in each of the two were hitting major arteries. I don't recall which ones were front to back in that situation.
And in fact, for Lyric, there are two shots that the medical examiner testified to that were at close range because they recognized stippling on the face. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so, knowing that there...
Sorry, it's on.
And so now knowing that there were wounds that were inflicted on these individuals in the front and at close range, and there was still no evidence of these injuries on Mr. Ross's clothing, let me rewind that. Now that you know, after having the autopsy, that there were wounds to the front, but you still now look back on this video that we just watched from the Petro video, and you still didn't recognize any evidence of these injuries on that individual on that video. Is that correct?
Yeah, sustained.
Okay. We'll keep moving forward. I feel like you've answered it. I asked it a second time. I know that sometime later, almost 2.5 weeks later, Mr. Ross was arrested in Delaware. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you were not present during that time?
That is correct.
All right. And you were not given any information that Mr. Ross made any statements while he was in Delaware. Is that correct?
The only thing that the task force officer in Delaware informed me during the course of his arrest was that Mr. Ross indicated that his name was Jonathan Trapp.
Okay. So Mr. Ross gave you my name?
Correct.
Okay. Or gave the officer my name?
That's correct.
And after he was brought from Delaware to North Carolina, there were no statements or admissions from Mr. Ross to law enforcement. Is that correct?
Approach. Do you want to continue with your line of questioning?
No, Judge. defense rest.
Ms. Orr, this time it really is your turn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a few follow-up questions. Sergeant Goodwin, on cross-examination, Mr. Trapp asked you about the camo bag and pink sweatshirt recovered from Mr. Bryant's vehicle.
Correct.
Are you the one who recovered those items?
I am.
And did you have an opportunity to, or straight that, what, if anything, did you do with those items?
Once they were collected, I was able to show photos of the items to the families to confirm if they belong to Devin and or Lyric. And both families stated that none of the items that I collected from Mr. Bryant's vehicle that was left behind by Mr. Ross were their kids.
And I want to jump back to the search warrant related to the white GMC Terrain.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have an opportunity to examine the exterior and the interior of that vehicle?
I did.
And did you see any damage other than what you've already described on the front bumper?
I did not see any other damage on the interior or the exterior of the vehicle.
Did you see anything that would be consistent with a gunshot on the interior or the exterior of the vehicle?
I did not.
Over the break, were you able to determine when you received the Snapchat return?
Yes, I was.
And when was that?
December 1st of 2022.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any recross?
Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. Step down.
The state will call Christian Sykes.
Mr. Sykes, if you'll come right up here, we'll get you sworn in, all right? Can do that as well.
Just raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give this court and jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, this being your solemn affirmation?
I do.
Mr. Sykes, when you have a seat, just make sure you're up close to that microphone, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Would you please state and spell your name for the court reporter?
Christian Sykes, ChristianSykes.
And Mr. Sykes, do you know Issiah Ross?
Yes.
How do you know him?
We were cool once upon a time.
Cool, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you first meet him?
He was with a group of people that I knew.
And so for about how long had you known him?
Like maybe 6 months or so, something like that. Not
Okay.
like a long time.
And would you guys hang out?
Time to time, yeah.
And what did you do when you were together?
Hang out, chill, talk, normal stuff.
Where did that normally happen?
My grandma's house or maybe his house in my car, like type situation.
Okay. And I want to draw your attention to, well, first let me ask you, do you see Mr. Ross in the courtroom today?
Yeah.
And can you point out where he is sitting and describe an article of clothing he is wearing?
With the white shirt.
I would ask that the record reflect that the witness pointed toward Mr. Ross and identified him by an article of clothing.
Record will so reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sykes, I want to draw your attention back to September of 2022. Did you have an opportunity to speak with law enforcement regarding Mr. Ross?
Yeah, they called me like 10 times.
Okay. And so did you speak to somebody on the phone?
Yes.
And do you recall if that was Captain Jeff Ray?
It could have been. I don't remember his name. I know it was somebody that works for Hillsborough.
Okay. What, if any, information did you provide at that time on the phone?
None.
You did not provide any information?
I think I just said his name. That was it.
Would reviewing Mr. Ray's supplement or Captain Ray's supplement help refresh your recollection as to what information that you provided him?
I know for sure I said his name, and I kind of gave a brief description of what I was told, but I didn't really go into detail.
Okay. What description of what you were told? What does that mean?
What he told me.
What Isaiah told you?
Yeah.
And what did he tell you?
That you want me to tell the whole story?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, he told me that he was going to hang out, or that he hung out with somebody, and they were going to. Do you want me to say it all? Like, okay.
It's been said before, probably.
All right. Well, he said that they were going to run a train that they went to run a train on a white girl. When they got there, they were hanging out and stuff, and somehow or another, the other boy had a gun, and he was like playing with the beam and pointing it on him, and he told him to stop, and he did it again, and he told him to stop, and he said the third time he went for the gun. They wrestled for the gun, and I don't remember exactly if he said the gun went off, but I do know he said that he shot them and dumped the bodies. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it
Okay.
that I remember.
Did he give you any indication of where they were when
In the
this
car.
happened? In the car.
He did say Eflin. I do remember that, but just in the car. I really wasn't trying to ask too many questions because honestly and truthfully, I didn't believe it. It just sounded crazy.
When did you have this conversation with him?
At first, when we had it, I thought it happened the night that it happened, but I think it was 2 nights after it happened because I remember seeing it like on Facebook, and then I seen the mom's like live video, and then that's when I was like, well, this is kind of like matching up a little bit. So yeah.
Okay. So just so we can make sure our pronouns are clear. So Isaiah said the other guy had the gun
Mm-hmm.
and that he was beaming him with it. What does that mean?
You know, a gun has a beam on it, like a light.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
And that, then you said did they argue about it? Did he give any indication?
I don't know.
Okay. And at what point did he shoot the guy or the girl?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
And you also provided some information that you knew about Isaiah. Did you give them a description of what he looked like?
I think it's a light skin, curly hair. That was like pretty much the description what I gave him.
Okay. What color was his hair at that time?
I don't know. I don't know.
And did you know where he lived?
I knew in Mebane. Yeah, Mebane.
Okay. And did you provide them with a phone number for Isaiah?
Maybe.
And so after speaking with Captain Ray, did you also meet with an investigator and speak with her?
Yes.
And where did you do that?
Walmart in Mebane.
And can you describe what you told her when you met with her?
Exactly what I told you just now.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, if I could just have one moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Sykes, once you saw that the two individuals were missing, did you communicate with Isaiah again about that?
No, I don't think I did. I know I told four of my friends the night that I saw it, and then, yeah.
And do you know if your interview with Investigator Hunter was recorded?
I do now, but initially I was supposed to be anonymous, but I didn't know that she secretly recorded me. So I know that y'all do have a recording of that.
Your Honor, this time I would mark that recording as State's Exhibit 142, and I would ask to play it at this time.
Any objections to admitting States 142 into evidence?
No objection, Judge.
All right. State's Exhibit number 142 will be admitted without objection. Sworn, you may publish it to the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Come on, help. There we go. Go back and redo it. There we go. All right.
Communications. 123. 1041. 314. Oscar copy. Communication. 103. I checked spoke with the caller. 103, clear go to 173.
Hey,
I think I'm right beside you.
you are.
Okay, I'm coming.
Okay.
129. 141, area 9. I'll be riding with 127. Can you show me primary, please?
Hey. You alright?
No,
You want some water?
no, I just need shaking.
Relax. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you okay sitting here?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Alright. It's gonna be okay.
It's just too much. I don't do this type of stuff.
I know.
I don't do
I
this.
know. First of all, thank you for coming.
Yeah, of
It's gonna be a
course.
very big help.
Of course. The whole messed up situation all over.
I got two different channels
No, you're
going.
fine.
Okay, so I guess we can just start from the beginning. I'm gonna let you talk a little bit and
Okay, so everything that I know basically is, so I met the boy Isaiah. I don't know his last name, but I have his Snapchat name, and that's usually how we converse. I gave the other officer his phone number because I do have his phone number.
okay, and we'll get back to you because I'm gonna go over everything if I write anything down.
Okay.
Okay. So, how did you meet him through Snapchat? Or?
No, I met him because my grandmother lives on Freshwater, and my cousin lives directly behind her. Like, it's all one street. They were friends, and I'm just going to be 100%
Sure.
transparent. They were friends, and they were outside smoking. That's how I met him.
Okay.
Ended up smoking with him, and then we exchanged Snapchats, and then that's how it happened. So, that was like last year, I want to say. And so Saturday, pretty sure it was Saturday. I don't want to get the days mixed up.
Okay.
But Saturday, I smoked with him, and then he was like, stuff went crazy last night, but he didn't elaborate.
Where were you guys at when this happened?
Deerfield.
Okay. At his mama's house?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, but it was like real quick, because then I had to hurry up and get back home.
What time was this?
I get off at like 4:15.
And so it was in the afternoon?
Yeah.
Was anybody else there?
No. He came out to my car. I don't know exactly. I think I know which building, but I don't know which apartment.
Okay.
Well, he came out to my car, and then we smoked, obviously, and then I had to leave because I had to go see my grandma.
Okay.
She lives on Freshwater, which is down 119. So I went to see her, and then I went home, and then he called me on it's FaceTime, but on Snapchat, like video call. And then he started saying, like, stuff was crazy, and he was going to New York, and I was like, what happened? I was sitting in my car, I just got back home, and he was like, what happened? I was like, what happened? And then he showed me, like, a gun, and I was like,
Okay, go ahead.
and he showed me, like, a gun, and I was like, you got a gun? Okay, like, what does that mean? And then he was like, well, I picked up this dude. He didn't give me no names. He just said he picked up a dude. And when he picked him up, he was going to pick up a girl. And then he was taking them to go, I guess, have sex.
all three of them together?
I don't know if all three of them together or if he was just taking the boy and the girl to go
Okay.
have sex or whatever the case, or if all three of them were going to do it. That part, I really didn't ask questions on.
Okay, yeah.
So then I was like, okay, but mind you, I haven't been on Facebook for a while, and they've been all over Facebook, but I don't get on Facebook unless somebody send me a funny video. So nothing is clicking in my head at this point. So then I said, so then I was like, okay, and then he was like, but I capped him, and I was like, what you mean? And he was like, well, the dude was holding the beam on me, and I'm assuming he meant like the gun had like
A laser?
a laser type of thing on it, but he was like, he was pointing it at him. He was like, I don't like that, and I told him to stop, and I told him multiple times to stop, but he kept doing it, and he said the gun had bullets in it. And so he was like, I told him to stop. So then he said he grabbed the gun, and they was wrestling with the gun, and then I'm assuming Devin was like had his finger in it. He pulled the trigger, and he said that the bullet went like near his legs, like that way. He said in between his legs, but that's what he said. And then he said that he like got the gun from him, and then he said he shot him. And then he said that the white girl, well, he didn't say white girl, but he said the girl that was in the back seat, he said she saw everything, so I turned around and I shot her. Now, this is Sunday when he told me this. This is the next day, actually, because I was with my friend Maya.
So did Maya hear this too?
Maya didn't hear, but she did see the messages where he, like, agreed to doing it. I know she's not going to want to be involved at all, but she saw the message because, okay, so he told him the story. This is Sunday, and then he's like, boom. So then Maya, whenever I get off the phone, I go out and I'll leave from the bathroom, and I go back in there, and Maya's tell me, the two people, the girl that was missing, they just found her body. And I was like, what girl that's missing? And then she started showing me a picture of her or whatever, and then I was like, wow. And then she said that they found the body of the boy, like it was like 15 minutes after that she told me that. And then that's when I was like, what? Because I thought the story that he was telling me, honestly, I just thought he was just telling me some story because he got a gun, because he lies a lot, in my honest opinion, in my opinion. So then she said that this was yesterday. And then so I texted him on Snapchat, and I was like, that story that you told me, was that real? Because they just found two bodies in Eflin. And he was like, because whenever he was telling me the story, he was like, do you know what Eflin is? And I was like, Eflin? And he was like, yeah. And then that's when he told the story. And then when I texted him, he was like, yeah, Lyric and Devin rest up with like the emoji over the hand. And I texted him and I was like, what the fuck? I said, what's going on? Where are you? And then he said that he was on the way. His cousin was taking him to Raleigh to get on a bus to go back to New York.
Okay. So I have a couple questions,
Okay.
and don't take any insult to
No,
it.
you're fine.
I'm not here to judge anybody.
You're fine.
So did you and Isaiah have like a certain type of relationship other than friendship? And I ask that because normally when someone shares that type of
Yes.
information.
Yes. Some stuff occurred.
Okay. So were you guys involved other than friendship? Were you in a sexual relationship with him as well?
It didn't really.
Because did you guys see each other that way sometimes?
Yeah.
And I
It
say that
happened
because-
it happened twice, but most of the time we just smoked.
Yeah. And the only reason I asked that because it seemed like he was very personable with you, and he trusted
Yeah, I don't
you.
know
So for
why
him to
he
tell
told
you
me
that
that
kind of
though.
stuff.
I don't know
Yeah.
why he
Okay.
called me and told me, like, he know I don't do that type of stuff. I'm going to school to
So
be a
you guys
nurse.
would be, you're kind of close. so
Yeah,
he
like,
confided in you.
like he
Okay.
calls me and tells me whenever his mom and him get to arguing, like, she's like this weekend she was kicking him out because she said he wrecked her car or something like that of
Did
that
he mention
nature.
to you, like, had he wrecked the car?
He said somebody must have backed into it. He said Friday he sat in the car, but he didn't go nowhere in that car. And then that's when he told me that. And then I was like, okay. And then Sunday when we talked again, well, after Saturday, of course, we smoked. And then Sunday when we talked again, that's when all the stuff he told me. And I was like, what? And I was telling my friend Maya, like I was talking to her, I was like, I don't know what to do. because if he just did this, right? And his family is helping him get to New York all of a sudden. In my eyes, to me, that makes me think that his family knows what just happened and they don't care. So if I say anything or do anything, if they don't care about that, well, honestly, because whenever you go to the police, they list your name, your address, your age, all of that type of stuff. I've read papers where people have told what stuff that they know, and their name is all in the article. So my name is in the article. He knows where my grandmother lives. He knows where my cousins and all of them live.
What did this gun look like?
It was like a black. I would say maybe a 9. It looked. I don't really know much about guns, but it was like a handgun.
Okay, what color was
Black.
it? Black. Okay.
I remember it was black. And then the thing is he was like, I was gonna throw it, but I'm leaving for New York, so I might as well keep it. So I from what I know, he has the gun with him.
Okay. Did he show you when he was talking about the boy having the laser? Did he show you while you guys were talking that it had
He
a
just
laser?
held it up like I just saw like the part where the bullets go in, and he took the bullets out, and he took the clip out, and there was no bullets in it.
Okay, so showing that he emptied the clip.
Basically.
Okay.
Like, and it was crazy because it was like no remorse, which was why because I've never like looked at him as like a person that's like, in my eyes, that's like evil. If you could murder 2 people like that and then show no emotion, that's why I was thinking the story was just something that he came up with, because you're not showing no emotion, you're laughing on the video call, like.
Do you have like the thing where you put the emojis with the can I take a picture of that?
The Snapchat, it deletes everything immediately.
I didn't
so
know
the only
if like
thing that
sometimes
I have
if you guys
is
keep
the
it.
last message from June 20th.
Oh, okay.
So that's the only thing that I have. Last time we talked was 22 hours ago. That's when he told me. So it was actually about this time when I found out.
Did you know Devin?
No, and the thing is like, my little brother just posted on his Snapchat that they was friends, and he just saw him Thursday. And then I saw the video.
When you say little brother, is it really your little brother?
Yeah, like my
okay.
little brother.
Okay.
Like he just graduated from Eastern, and he just had posted that he was with him Thursday, and I don't know, that kind of hit home for me because I was like, my little brother could have been in that car. And then I saw Devin's mom's video live on Facebook, and it like broke my heart. But at the same time, I gotta be protective of me in a way, because I don't know what him or his family is capable of. All it takes is a phone call. They know where my grandmother lives, and my grandmother don't have nobody there but my uncle, and he works, so. And he knows, like, all you gotta do is pop the door open to get it open. So, I don't know.
Tell me a little bit more about Issiah.
I know his name is Isaiah. I don't really know his last name. I gave the officer his Snapchat.
Yeah.
I know he goes to Eastern, well, I guess went to Eastern. He told me he's 18. I know his mom says at Deerfield. He's a skinny boy. He's light skinned. Right now his hair is blonde, but it's normally like black or brown. I was trying to see if I had any pictures in my Snapchat or anything, and I don't have nothing, because he don't ever post pictures. I don't know if he has Instagram or Facebook. If I seen him, I would know who he was, but he's like real skinny. I know he used to work at Lowe's Food, or still does work at Lowe's Food in Mebane, because I used to give him rides from Lowe's Food home sometimes when his mom was at work. And I mean, everything that I've known of him, he's been like a chill, nice, level-headed, funny dude.
And how did you meet him again? You like
through my cousin.
Your cousin.
My cousin and him was outside. Yeah, my cousin and him was outside, just like playing around and chilling outside. And then I went outside. My cousin was like, "Hey, CJ." I went down there, talked to him, and I chilled with them for a little bit. And then that's how I met him. And my cousin,
who's your cousin?
His name is Thomas. Blackwell, but
Okay.
yeah, he's 21.
So you go by CJ
Yeah,
sometimes too?
That's what my family calls him, like close family.
Okay.
They call me CJ. But everybody else, like work and school and everything, they know me by Christian.
Okay. And do you hang out with anybody else around this area other than him?
Everybody else I hang out with is like my friends, Maya, Michaela, and Taylor, and all of them like are in Burleson. So I'm never down here unless I'm like seeing my little brothers or I'm visiting my grandma. I might hang out with my cousins while I'm down there because they live down there. And then sometimes I'll pick him up from work, we'll smoke, and then that's about it.
Okay. So you didn't know Devin or this
No,
white girl?
I just saw it on Facebook.
Okay.
And then he was like, whenever I asked him, he was like, yeah, and then rest up. And it was just like no remorse. And I don't know.
Do you remember what he was wearing the afternoon that you guys, and you said that was on Saturday that you guys smoked?
Yeah, it was Saturday afternoon.
Okay. What was he wearing?
It was like a black hoodie.
Okay.
And I think he had on either, it was like some long, like, lay around the house type of shorts. Probably were pants that he cut into shorts or something.
Did he
like
look
that.
like he was injured in any type of way?
Not to my knowledge. He didn't look injured.
And when you say that you guys smoked, was it usually marijuana, or did it have anything else mixed with
Just
it?
marijuana.
Okay. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and so when you were FaceTiming him, did you FaceTime him on that Saturday and that Sunday? And
No, he FaceTime. I meant to just say he had FaceTime me. I want to say it was Sunday morning was when he told me the story, and I was like not believing it. But then around this time was when yesterday was when my friend Maya was showing me all the stuff, because like I said, I don't get on Facebook unless I see a funny video, unless somebody send me something to watch, then I might scroll.
Yeah.
So then she was showing me all this stuff, and I was like, wait, what? And so then in my mind, too much stuff was correlating with, they was like, they left the house at 1:30, and then he told me it happened Friday, like late night. So it was just too much correlating, and I told my friend, I was like, I don't know, what do I do? Like,
so in the messages, and from when you were talking with him, he basically was like, I picked Devin and this girl up, so to have sex.
he said he picked him up, and he picked him up and her up, and I don't know if he was saying he was taking them, for like just giving them a ride to go do it, or if all three of them was gonna do it.
Did he say where he picked up Devin from?
No, he just said he picked them up from, he took them to Eflin. That's all he said.
He took
that
them to Eflin.
That he was taking them to Eflin, or that they was in Eflin or something like that.
Okay. Anything else from that conversation?
Besides the no remorse, the gun, him still saying he gonna keep the gun, that he's going to New York, that his cousin was helping him get a ticket to New York.
Which cousin, do you remember?
I don't know. I've never met his cousins or anything like that, but he was like, his cousin is gonna get him a ticket to New York. And that whenever that Sunday, whenever I was like trying to figure out if this was like real or just like a coincidence, he was like, he's on the way to Raleigh to catch a bus to go back to New York. And I was like just in shock, and I just did not respond.
Do you know who took him to Raleigh?
I know it wasn't his mom, because I know him and his mom had like a huge fight, and she like took some money from him. I want to say Friday during the day was when he told me that, and then he said he was going to his stepdad's house.
Do you know if he did any other type of drugs?
No, the only thing that I've ever known is like smoke weed. I mean, I think he's like maybe drunk too.
And did he mention anything about going to any ball games or a party or anything like that the night before?
He always told me that he like just chilled at the house, or like he just went to like friends' house or whatever. I gave him a ride to maybe a couple places. Sometimes whenever he needed a ride, he would give me gas money and just that type of stuff.
And you said that like sometimes he like sits in the car I know you said that he sits in your car, but did he explain anything that might have happened to his mom's car or anything like
He
that?
said that it looked like somebody hit the car, but then again, and that was, I want to say, I know that was probably before Friday, whenever that happened, because they had gotten this big fight. And he had went to his stepdad's house, but then he went back to his mom's house, I want to say Saturday. And then he left from his mom's house Saturday and went to his, after I left, he, you know, like whenever you leave him, like, what you about to do, he said he was about to go to his stepdad's house, and then I left and went to my grandma's.
Is there another car that he would have driven?
I never knew him to drive a car. I just know that his mom had picked him up a couple times from my cousin's house, and she drove like a black, like SUV. I want to say it's either like a Chevy Equinox type of build or like a GMC type of like boxy black SUV.
Those are her cars?
Yeah, that's like what it kind of looks like. I don't know exactly what kind of car it is.
Does she have any other cars that you know of?
I just always seen the black SUV.
Okay. And you've not known him to drive any other type of vehicle?
I've never known him to drive. Every time he hit me up, he needed a ride somewhere.
Okay. And you've never seen him drive?
No. He told me that he told me that he sat in his mom's car and he didn't take it out the parking lot. That's about the only time he ever mentioned anything about being in a car or behind a wheel, at least down here.
Mm-hmm. So when he said that he picked up Devin and this girl, he didn't tell you what car he was in?
No, I didn't.
Did you find it kind of odd, since you know that he doesn't drive, that he'd be driving to pick them up?
That's why the whole story I didn't think was real. Like, the whole story just seemed off. And then he didn't even know the name of Eflin. Like, it just, that's why I didn't pay it no mind when he told me Saturday. I was just like,
seeing the gun.
Yeah, I was. Okay. Well, he always has a gun. He had a gun before a couple times whenever he got in the car, but I don't like that, and I always make him go put it back in the house because I don't like guns like that. I'm not a gun person.
Okay. So, and who else would he hang out with? I know we talked about that a few minutes ago, but like
I know him and my cousin stopped hanging out like last year. They fell out.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't really know who he hang out with. Only time that we would hang out, it would just be me and him.
Okay.
So I don't really know if he has friends or don't have friends.
What was your conversations?
Just regular conversations like, what's up, what you doing? And then he would tell me stuff that he got going on, or he went to PA Pennsylvania the other day. Like he went to a party in Pennsylvania, just like regular conversations.
Was he seeing any girls, any other guys that he was interested in?
I mean, I know that he like talked to girls and stuff, but I never really like got that deep into those stuff. Honestly,
I didn't know.
I never got
I'm
that.
asking that. I was just trying to see, like maybe who he might have been close with.
But that part, I wouldn't be able to help you with that now. I'm not going to, but I probably could have found out if I had just mentioned his name to my little brother, being that they both was in the same like class at Eastern or whatever. So I'm pretty sure, and I don't even know if my little brother knows him, or if my little brother hung out with him, because if Devin and him was cool, Eastern's not that big. I went to Eastern. I know how everybody is like friends with everybody at Eastern. It don't matter like what grades you in, everybody just knows everybody. So I don't even know if like my little brother knows who he is, or because I know my little brother know Devin because I saw my little brother posted on Snapchat where he was like he was just with him Thursday. And then whenever I had talked to my little brother, I want to say, I think it was, what day was it? Thursday. Yeah, it was Thursday because he said he was going to hang out with friends, and I guess that's when he went and hung out with Devin and then with his girlfriend and my brother's girlfriend, and then went to hang out with Devin, and then I saw him post that on his Snapchat yesterday, and I was like, wow. So all of this is like real.
I'm going to give you my business card. If something comes up that you can remember, that always happens to me later on. want you to give me a text or a call. And if he like makes contact with you, do you have like a second phone or someone else's phone that you can take a picture of? I know on Snapchat.
No, if he, it
Don't
tells you
screenshot
I'm
it.
not.
Yeah,
If
don't
he
screenshot
already-
it, but take
if
another
he
picture with another
responds,
phone.
If
You
he
understand what I'm
texts
saying?
me, I'm definitely gonna let y'all know because I don't like the fact that he told me all this information. I mean, I guess it's kind of good because I can help y'all.
Yeah.
But still, to me, it's like, I don't know. I don't see how you can just do that to somebody. Just, I don't know. That's why I didn't believe it, because he never mentioned like that kind of stuff. Because I don't do that like hot boy stuff. I'm in school. I'm trying to focus and get somewhere in my life. Like, I help people for a living. Like, I don't understand why he felt comfortable enough to tell me, and then I feel like this is just a lie. But I know who he is. I could point him out if I seen him. Right now he's got blonde hair, and I just know that 22 hours ago, he said he was on the way to Raleigh to get on a bus to go back to New York. That's the last contact that I've had with him.
And it was just always you and him when you guys would smoke.
Yeah, it was just me and him, or it was me, him, and my cousin, but then him and my cousin stopped talking, like, sometime before Christmas or something like that.
What was your cousin's name?
Thomas Blackwell.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So make sure. And what phone number did you have for Issiah?
(908) 440 5523. I haven't texted him. The last time that I had texted him was April the 11th. All the time it's always on
It's always on Snap.
Snapchat. If you want his Snapchat name, I'll give you that.
I'll get a picture. It's easier
Yeah.
with all that.
Though that's the address that he sent me one time, 308 Moore Street, but that's his.
Make sure I got that in there.
Oh, the address?
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
I just feel like it's a lot.
And so Friday, well, Saturday was the last day that you seen him in person.
Yeah, that I actually seen him.
All right.
And I talked to him Sunday.
Through Snap.
Yeah.
And then you saw him on FaceTime
Yeah, Sunday.
afterward.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sunday. Well, no, I saw him Saturday, and I saw him. He FaceTime. He video chatted me Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
It was either Saturday night or Sunday morning. I can't remember exactly, but I know that he had video. No, it was Sunday morning because it was daylight outside. He was outside, so it was Sunday morning, and then that's when I had
You know
got.
where he was at? When
He was at his stepdad's house because
Okay.
he was telling me that that's where he was because him and his mama had got into it again.
Was he packing up or?
He was just outside.
Oh, he wasn't doing
Yeah.
anything in
I
particular.
didn't. He wasn't like doing nothing like crazy. He was just like sitting outside,
Okay.
talking on the phone like normal, like nothing ever happened. Which is why I was not believing a word that he said. Because usually, I feel like if you do something like that, like it will show.
Yeah.
Like you know, like
Yeah.
you just be able to tell, like that you just went through something, like. Because I feel like that's real traumatic.
Yeah.
Like, and I was just like, whatever. Like, but now that I know what I know, it's kind of like sick. A little bit. Like, it kind of makes me like queasy a little bit. That like, you was just having a full like conversation in my face, and you know you just did this for real, and why you feel like that's something like, I guess, brag or boast about.
Have you been to his stepdad's house before? For what?
I haven't been like in there, but like picking him up, taking him to work, dropping him off from work.
Oh, okay. Never to hang out or anything like that?
Nah, not
like
really.
Smoke or anything?
Like whenever we smoke, he would like walk to the top of the street. But he, I know his like stepdad house is right here, and then I drove him down because it's like his aunt or something lives on the house at the end of that road, because it's like a road that like it's a dead end. So other than that, it was like only time I went like actually down the road was when I was like dropping him off for work or picking him up for taking him to work or something.
How's his relationship with his stepdad?
It's gotta be good, because every time him and his mom get into it, he goes over there, and I know that they separated recently, so she just got an apartment at Deerfield not too long ago, maybe like 4 months
Is he pretty close with his stepdad?
ago. I would say as close as he could be. He said that he's like drill sergeant-y, but he's saying like he's cool, like, you know.
Does he let him do a lot of stuff? Does he know that he smokes and stuff like that?
I don't think he knows. I'm pretty sure that they know. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't know like how cool he was.
oh, I don't think he's like that cool.
Yeah, okay.
He probably like will smell it if he walks in
Yeah.
the house, but I don't think he like openly would just like let him just smoke or something like that. I don't know. He probably would. I don't
mean,
know.
you say drill sergeant,
You
so-
never know.
Drill sergeant.
I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the word that I put together.
Okay. All right. Anything else that you think that might be important?
I don't know. I've been thinking like every time I was remembering something, I had called and told the officer, so everything like is on my memory.
Yeah,
'Cause I was,
and that's why I gave you my
Yeah, I
part,
was
because
at
I'm the
work.
same way. I'll be at home and
yeah, like
I can
every
do a
time I
car.
would remember something, I was like, oh yeah, I remember he
Yeah.
had the gun in the video, so I was calling back, and I remember that he like showed the clip, but he was like, you see, it's empty, and I was just thought he was trying to like add more fuel to this story, because the story just sounded so like, I don't know. You know how when somebody is telling you something and you just be like, you're lying?
Because you're like, oh man, that's so fucking wild, you know?
Yeah, like
True.
it's just like you're saying all of this, but you're like laughing and smiling. I feel like if you just did something like that, you got to be a real sick individual to just be laughing and carrying on and smiling and
Did he
acting
describe like how he like
No, he just
shot
said
him
that
and
he-
where he shot him at?
He said that he like just they was wrestling for the gun, and he said that the boy was shooting the gun as like they was wrestling. Like he said, it shot like 2 times, and then he got the gun, shot him, and then turned around and shot the girl because she saw everything. And in my head, the reason why I wasn't believing it, because I was thinking like, okay, if I'm in the back seat, right, and 2 people are wrestling for a gun and it's going off, I'm not gonna continue to sit in the back seat.
Yeah.
I'm
Like,
gonna
were they driving? Were they
yeah,
stopped?
no,
or
he
parked
said that they were
somewhere?
parked.
Like, did he tell you where they were parked?
No, he just said Eflin.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he probably didn't even know where they were parked.
Okay.
Because he didn't, well, he said Eflin, something.
Yeah.
I was like, Eflin? But, yeah, like, and I was just thinking, like, the whole story just, it wasn't adding up, because I was like, me personally, and any logical thinking person that I know, but then again, when you're in this situation, you might just be, like, stuck. But if you have time to be wrestling for a gun and it's going off, and then more time for you to get the gun and then shoot him, why would somebody just continue to sit in the back seat?
Yeah.
And then you telling me this story, and
He's like,
I
I would
don't
go
know.
fucking
It's just,
running or
yeah,
something.
no, I would be gone.
Yeah.
If as soon as no,
Well, did he mention like what did he do afterwards?
he just said he dumped the bodies and left. I don't know if that meant he drove, walked, ran. He just said I had to dump the bodies and nobody's gonna find them. So I was like, okay, nobody's gonna find them, so it's never gonna come to light. So you're just telling me like a lie.
And where did he go afterwards?
That's what I'm saying. Like I guess
like,
he went
did he
home.
go to his friend's house? Or
No, I'm pretty sure he probably went home.
Mm-hmm. He didn't tell you what he did once he got home?
I didn't
or?
ask.
Mhm.
I thought
Yeah.
somebody's lying. I feel like somebody's lying. I feel like now I wish I would have asked more
Yeah.
questions, because now I feel like I would have had a lot more information, because now if I was to like try to ask some questions, it would be off.
So when you like confronted him about, hey man, they found,
No, I texted him straight up. I
bodies
said, yesterday at like 5 o'clock, I texted him. I said,
because he had told you, hey, they're not gonna find them, and then you come
yeah,
find
I
out
texted
they
him.
found
I
them.
texted him on Snapchat. Well, first I had called him on Snapchat and he didn't answer because he said he was about to get on the bus or he was in the car on the way to Raleigh, something like that. So I texted him. I was like, the girl and the boy that you're talking about, are their name Lyric and Devin? No, I was like, is her name Lyric? And he was like, yeah, Lyric and Devin rest up with like the, I'll show you which emoji it was.
I think I know which one you're talking about, but yeah, I'd like to see it just to make sure.
I just texted my sister. It was that emoji.
Okay,
That kind of emoji.
I would just get a picture of it just for definitely know.
It was 3 of those, and I remember he was like,
There we go.
but yeah, it was like, he was like, rest up. And I was like, are you being for real right now? And then,
New text message from 91980544173.
and I was just like, are you for real right now? Like, what the hell? And then either he didn't respond or I didn't respond after that. It was something like that. But yeah, after I saw that, I was like, and Maya saw him say that, and then I was like, so this is like, the story that he told me was like, for real. Like, why would he put that on my conscience for me to know? Like, she's 14 and he's 18. Like, they got their whole life ahead of them. So, number one, I felt like it was for no reason. Because I feel like if you pick them up for them to have sex or for y'all to have sex or whatever, and he's playing around putting the beam on you, why would you feel like, so something's not adding up in my eyes. Something's, because I feel like
Something happened.
something had to happen that he didn't tell me, because he was like, he was pointing the beam at me, and I told him to stop, and then I grabbed the gun, but I was like, why would you feel threatened if you picked them up and y'all are going?
So he didn't, when you like confronted him about it, he was just like,
yeah.
he just said, yeah,
He just
he
said,
didn't like seem like, oh well, shit, you know,
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
worried
what I'm,
about it or
nothing
nothing
at
like
all. I
that.
guess that he feels like,
It's like no big deal. I'm just gonna get
no
out of
big
town.
deal, or like, maybe, I'm about to get on the bus and go to New York. They're not going to find me.
2312 Nat Drive off of Oakdale Drive, overdose patient operated.
Or it's like, I'm about to be in New York, so nobody's going to find me. But at the end of the day, I don't know, this been sitting on me for all day. And tonight I was going to call that tip line because Maya had gave it to me. Because I wanted it to be anonymous because I'm like super terrified.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, if you know something, you still gotta say something. Because after I saw that boy's mama's live, like, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
Because then it was like that was happening Sunday, and I had just heard this wild story from this dude that potentially may be true, and she's begging for her son to come home, and she don't know what's going on, and then they find 2 bodies, and you just told me that you shot 2 people and dumped the bodies in Eflin. That's too coincidental.
Are you familiar with this area?
Mebane and Burleson and Graham. I know a little bit of Eflin. Like, I know, like, Buckhorn Road, because I had a friend that lived, like, 1,000 miles down Buckhorn Road. But other than that, I'm not really familiar with Eflin like that. But Mebane and Burleson, yeah, I went to Eastern. So I was down here from, like, middle school and high school. So I'm pretty familiar with the area, but I just feel like it's wild.
And where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Greensboro, and I moved up here to be with my dad because some stuff happened with my mama.
Okay.
So I moved up here, and I've been here since 7th grade, I think. 7th, 8th grade.
All right. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
And again, if something else comes up, or if he texts you or whatever, let's
You'll
let me
know.
Okay.
You'll know.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Trying to get some rest.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep last night, but I don't know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sykes, did you and Isaiah have an argument or a falling out of any kind?
I don't think so.
I don't have any further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Yes. Mr. Trapp, the witness is with you.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Sykes.
Hi.
So you had an opportunity to answer some questions with Ms. Orr, and then you had an opportunity to listen to that recording from 2022.
Yes.
So do you do remember meeting with law enforcement sometime in September 2022?
Yes.
But you didn't know, at least at that time, that was recorded. Is that right?
No.
And you found out that it was recorded recently?
Yes.
Today, last?
Maybe like a couple days after I got the subpoena.
Okay. So sometime in 2025, 2026?
No, I got the subpoena like within like the last like 2 months. So yeah, into 2025.
And have you yourself ever watched or listened to that video?
No.
Now, some of the questions you were asked today and that you testified to were a little different from the video. Did you see any different? You recognize anything that you heard that might have been a little different?
Yeah, but it was also like 4 years ago. So.
And so maybe some of the things you forgot.
Yeah.
Now, there were some questions that the officer asked after you kind of gave your initial statement that delved into a little bit more detail. But I'm going to ask you some questions about what you heard and what you talked about so far today. Is that all right?
Okay.
So you mentioned that on Saturday, and Saturday would have been the 17th of September, that you met with Mr. Ross at Deerfield, and you guys sat in the car together and smoked. You remember hearing that, or do you remember that happening?
Yeah.
So that did happen.
I think so. If I said it in the video, then it probably did. But then again, it was almost 4 years ago, so I don't really remember.
And you mentioned that it would have had to been after you got off work, which would have been about 4:15.
Yeah.
And were you going to say anything else?
Mm-mm.
And so that Saturday, you met with Mr. Ross at Deerfield Apartments. Based on what you heard, maybe not necessarily, you don't remember it vividly, but it would have had to been after work that day on Saturday.
Yeah, because I work 4 to 4.
And you all sat in your car for a short amount of time, I think is what you said. Is that about right?
Yeah.
And at that time, he had not told you anything about the morning before or night before. Is that right?
No.
So then later on, you all spoke again, but that time this next time was by FaceTime. Is that right? Or
Snapchat video, yeah.
Snapchat video. And that would have also been on Saturday.
No, I think that was Sunday. Could have been Saturday. Again, that was a long time ago.
Okay. All right. And when you talked on Snapchat video, that is when you learned some of this information. Is that right?
Correct.
And you mentioned that you didn't ask a lot of questions. You were just listening, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is there a possibility as you're listening to this or watching this, I guess you're looking at the phone, that there are some things that you may have either misheard or just not got clarification about?
I don't know.
One of the things that was mentioned in the recording was that the shooting took place in the car. Was that something that you were told?
Yes.
Okay. Another thing that you testified to was that you saw the firearm and that it was black. Do you recall that?
I saw a firearm that was black on video. I don't know if it was that one because I was not there.
Okay. Thank you. So you saw a firearm and it was black.
Yes.
Okay. When you were talking or listening at this point, did you at any time actually ask any questions about what you were told?
No.
Okay, so you just listened.
Kinda. I kinda was like, maybe I might have asked a question or two, but again, I didn't believe it. So.
In this conversation, do you recall how long it was? This one that was on the Snapchat video.
No.
And when you were hearing this, you then said afterwards, I guess you showed some text messages or some messages to one of your friends.
Yeah. Well, Snapchat messages, yeah.
And these Snapchat messages, they were sent before or after you had this video call?
I don't remember. I remember showing her something after we talked about that, but it had to be after because I didn't know nothing until after that video call. And I learned about them when I was with her.
And when you went to Mr. Ross's house that Saturday before you had this video call, you said that the vehicle that his mom had was black. Do you recall hearing that?
Yeah.
Okay, and you remember kind of seeing her car there and...
Not there. I just remember seeing her pick him up and her car was black. Most people don't. They have one car, so...
Did he mention to you when you picked him up that his mom's car had gotten into an accident or got messed up?
I don't remember.
In the video, you had discussed a special relationship you had with Mr. Ross. And at first, you were a little hesitant, but then you said, yes, you did. Do you recall that?
I don't remember saying special because it wasn't special, but sure.
Intimate relationship.
I wouldn't say it was that either, but okay. If that's what you want to go with.
Well, how would you describe it?
We was cool.
Okay. You mentioned that you smoked.
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no, please?
Yeah.
But you mentioned that there are other things you did in addition to smoking. In particular, the officer said that for you to get information like that, that you must have a closer relationship than just associates. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And so, did you have a relationship that was more than just hanging out and smoking with Mr. Ross?
I think that's what the video said.
But I'm asking you today, did you?
Approach.
Mr. Sykes, let me rephrase this question. Is what you said in the recording true about your relationship with Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Thank you. There are a couple times you made reference to where Mr. Ross was going. Was this something said he told you that he was going to New York, or is that something you just believed?
That's what I was told.
And did you talk to him when he was on his way to the?
So he was already there.
You made a mention that you would typically talk with him on Snapchat. And the last text message, at least according to the recording that we listened to from back in 2022, I think this last text message was back in April. So you didn't talk much by text, is my question.
No, I don't think so. No.
There are also mentions that you would pick him up from work.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay. And that you remember taking him to his stepdad's house.
Mm-hmm.
Did you visit his stepdad's house around the time of this event when you all were talking?
I don't think so.
Okay. You also mentioned that his aunt's house was right down the street. Did you ever take him there?
No.
Did he remark or tell you that's my aunt's house? How would you know it was right down the street?
Because I think somebody was coming down the driveway one day,
Okay.
and he had me back up. So, yeah.
Okay. When you were talking to the officer in the video or the interview, you mentioned that there were rest up emojis that were sent, but you weren't able to actually show them to her because they were no longer available. Is that right?
Yeah.
Were any of the text messages that you had showed some of your friends or that you had received, were any of those still available when you talked to the officer that day?
No.
Okay. And did you screenshot them?
No.
But you received them close enough in time where you could show it to your friends the day before?
No, she was with me.
So she watched them in real time come in?
Well, I texted him what I texted him, what I said in the video, and he responded and said it. I showed it to her.
Okay.
She was beside me.
Okay. And you brought to your attention what was going on Facebook and what had happened in Eflin?
Yeah, she brought it up, and then that's when I asked him. And then that's when he said that, and that's when I showed her that.
And then after you had this conversation, you were the one who called law enforcement and told them?
No. I'm sure her mother called law enforcement and had them call me.
Okay. And so when you had made a reference that law enforcement had called you 10 times, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, I was at work, and when I went on break, I saw that they called me 10 times.
And you had initially said that you thought this interview or time was anonymous. Is that right?
I thought all of it was.
Okay. And that people wouldn't know that you provided this information?
Yeah.
When you heard this story, I think the first thing you said was that shining a beam means that maybe this firearm had a laser on it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, you never actually saw with the laser. Is that right?
I don't know. It was on a video. I saw a black gun.
Okay. Did Mr. Ross say that this was used in the event when he talked to you?
No, I think he kind of alluded to it to me when he held the gun up.
Okay.
That's what I got from it.
And was the idea that this event took place in a car, was that actually said, or was that also alluded to?
Well, if he said he shot somebody and then turns around and shoots somebody, you can't turn around unless you're in a car, right? That's just what I'm assuming.
And you had said, at least on the video, I wish I had asked more questions because maybe some of these things wouldn't seem so off. Do you recall hearing that?
Yes, sorry.
And there are some other things that you had brought up in this interview. You said that whenever Mr. Ross got into a fight with his mom, he would go stay with his stepdad.
Yes.
And so he would normally tell you these things?
No, it's just, when you cool with somebody and they get into it and then they go, it's kind of like an observation.
One moment, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sykes, you mentioned that you weren't sure if that Mr. Ross went to Eastern Alamance. You're aware of that, right?
Yeah.
At the time.
Mm-hmm.
That your younger brother also went to Eastern Alamance. They might even been in the same grade. Is that right?
Yeah.
But you weren't even sure if your brother knew Mr. Ross.
Correct.
And so your brother was not aware of your relationship, to your understanding.
Correct.
And it caught your attention when you saw your brother post something about what happened to Devin.
Yeah.
And that it also caught your attention or touched you when you saw some of the things that were posted on Facebook by some of the parents related to this. Is that right?
Correct.
And so did those instances, the posting of the parents as well as what your brother posted, did that motivate you to want to come forward and say something?
It did, but I didn't. That wasn't the reason why I did. Did in my head, but that's not the reason that I did.
When you had these conversations or listened to or saw what you saw on this Snapchat video, did you write any of these things down? What you heard?
No.
Your conversations with Mr. Ross prior to this, other than saying, hey, do you need a ride from work or you want to go hang out and smoke, were there other occasions that you two would hang out with each other?
I don't really remember.
Okay. There was a statement that I wanted to just make sure I wrote down that you had mentioned twice. You stated that Mr. Ross told you, I capped them. And I don't know if it was them or M. Are you sure that's what he told you that day?
Whatever I said on the video is what happened. I don't remember at this moment what was said, but if that's what the video said, that's what happened.
Okay. And so if the video said that the shots were in the car, that's what was said.
That's what I was told.
And that there was a struggle and that there were 2 shots by a person's leg.
No, I think that might have been what he told me, but again, he wasn't always the most truthful person. So I don't know what was true and what wasn't.
Nothing further, Judge.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Stay here, Mr. Sykes. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I haven't been here a whole lot of time, but you have to take a break this afternoon, so we're going to go ahead and take that break right now. I would ask that all of you, I know you haven't forgotten, but please remember all the rules that apply. Have everybody else please remain seated, and we're going to excuse our jury at this time. All right, we'll show that our jury is outside of the courtroom. So we had 2 bench conferences. The most recent one, there was a series of questions about the relationship between Mr. Sykes and the defendant. I'd asked the attorneys to approach, since we'd gone over that a couple times, the relevance of that. I asked Mr. Trapp if he was going for this being some sort of character evidence, whether this was like to prejudice, bias, or truthfulness. I think Mr. Trapp had indicated that the line of questioning had to do with inconsistencies between testimony today versus statements that were made to the officer at that time. And I think at that point, Mr. Trapp, you said you were going to change your question, and I think you did. Is there anything else you need to put on the record, anything else you want to ask while we're still here?
Anything I want to ask in general, that was a good reiteration of what our bench conference was. And in no way was I trying to address character. I was just talking about the dichotomy between what was said today versus back in 2022.
Yeah, it's excellent trial strategy. Anything else that we need to add for the record to any of that?
No, ma'am.
Well, I still have Mr. Sykes here. Anything you want to put on the record?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. All right. Is there anything else that we need to address on behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor, and may Mr. Sykes be released from his subpoena.
The objection of defense?
Your Honor, I typically don't ask for people to remain on, but in the event that there is some information that I think might come up, I would ask for him not to be released.
All right. So, Mr. Sykes, you are done with your testimony here today. I'm not releasing you from your subpoena obligations at this time. We still have some other testimony that has to come. Only if at some point your testimony becomes relevant again to some of the questions, would you be called back. All right. But
Okay.
as for today, you'll be released. please remain in contact with, I guess at this point, the DA's office, in case there's anything comes up, all right? All right, thank you. All right, anything else on behalf of the defense?
Nothing on behalf of the defense, thank you.
All right, we'll be in recess for 15 minutes then. All right. Madam DA, you got your next witness ready?
Yes, Your Honor, he is seated right behind me, ready to go.
All right. Anything we need to address before we bring the jury in?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
Nothing for the defense. Thank you, Judge.
All right, let's bring our folks in, please. All right, we've got everybody back with us. Madam DA?
Your Honor, the state will call Special Agent Harrison Putman.
Special Agent, if you come up, get you sworn in right here.
Left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear testimony that you give this court and jury the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Special Agent, when you get seated there, just make sure you're close to the mic, okay?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state and spell your name for the court reporter?
Yes, it is Harrison Putman. That's Putman.
And where do you work?
I work for the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
What is your position there?
I'm a special agent.
And how long have you been with the FBI?
Since 2015, about 11 years.
And what's your general educational and work background?
Prior to the FBI, I obtained a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Iowa and a Master of Business Administration from Arizona State University. I worked at Caterpillar Incorporated for 3 or 4 years as an engineer, and then I worked at Intel Corporation for about 1.5 years in supply chain management.
And what is your current assignment with the FBI?
I'm currently assigned to the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team, otherwise known as CAST, C-A-S-T.
And what is the CAST unit?
CAST is a specially trained assignment within the FBI, and it's to be an expert in cell site and location data analysis. And in this role, we have 3 primary responsibilities: FBI investigations, other federal, state, and local investigations in terms of cell site and location data analysis. The second responsibility is to assist with emergency situations where we may be helpful. So things like kidnappings, terrorist events, other life-threatening circumstances. And then finally, we provide training to other law enforcement officers in cell site and location data analysis.
And what is cell site and location data analysis?
It is simply the review of records that have been obtained from cell phone providers like AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and it's in an effort to understand where a phone was based on those records. And it's typically useful in a law enforcement setting because it's often important to understand where a particular individual was when something happened.
And what is your training in cell site and location data analysis?
To become certified with CAST, I participated in about 250 hours of training in cell site and location data analysis. This included instruction from professors at the Florida Institute of Technology and Radio Frequency Theory and Cellular Architecture. We also received trainings from and have ongoing discussions with all the major cell phone providers. So again, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. We meet with their engineers and their records clerks, talk about the technologies that they use, the records that they produce, and how we can use those records to understand the location of a phone. We also receive training in different tools and software that we use to assist in conducting our analyses. And then finally, as part of becoming certified, we participate in practical exercises where we looked at volumes of records in an effort to understand or locate phones. And since becoming certified, every year we have an annual recertification. So for 1 week, all approximately 100 CAST agents meet up. The cell phone providers attend. We may have representatives from companies like Google or Meta come out. Learn and group.
And how long have you been on this assignment with CAST?
I became certified in 2021 in the beginning, so about 5 years now.
Have you previously testified as an expert in this field?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
I believe this is number 47.
And do you have a CV that describes your educational and professional experience?
I do.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
May.
Special Agent Putman, I will show you what I've marked for education purposes as State's Exhibit 143 and ask you if you recognize it.
I do.
And what is State's Exhibit 143?
It is my CV.
And is that a complete and accurate copy of your CV?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time I'd move State's 143 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
States 143 will be admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. And at this time, I would tender Special Agent Putman as an expert in cell site and location data analysis.
Any objection?
No objection to that.
All right. And Special Agent Putman will be admitted as an expert in cell site location.
Cell site and location
Cell-
data analysis.
Cell site and location data analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Special Agent Putman, how do cell phones work?
Yes, so when you're talking on your phone, maybe to a friend or family member, those two phones aren't communicating directly to each other. What's happening is your phone is exchanging radio frequency signals with a cell site, and then that information is routed through the network and those calls are connected. Now, all that a cell site is an antenna, typically at an elevated position, and the purpose of that cell site is to talk to all the phones in the area in front of it. It'd be kind of like if I held a flashlight over my head and the way the light would spread out onto the ground in front of me. That's what's happening with radio frequency off of this cell site. It's just spreading out onto the area in front of it. Now, these cell sites can be attached to big industrial-looking structures. They can also be attached to buildings, water towers. You might see a tree that stands 20 feet above the rest of the trees around it and never loses its leaves in the winter. If you look close, there might be some electrical equipment on there. That could be a cell site. Now, the most common configuration that a cell site comes in is what's referred to as a three-sector tower. All a three-sector tower is a single location where there's three sets of antennas pointing in different directions, each covering approximately 120 degrees. Adding them up, you have 360 degrees of coverage. Now, an example I like to use when explaining a three-sector tower is to think about a pizza that's cut into 3 equal-sized slices. In the center of the pizza would stand a tower. At the top would be those 3 sets of antennas, or sectors, each one pointing down the center of one of those slices of the pizza. And all the slice represents is the intended coverage area for one of the sectors on that tower. Now, in the real world, the coverage areas won't look that neat. It won't be this perfect circle and straight lines delineating the 2 sectors of coverage or 3 sectors of coverage. In the real world, we have different topographies and buildings and all these things that affect how radio frequency impacts the ground, but it still holds that the cell site is covering the area immediately in front of it up until a point where a neighboring cell site has a better signal.
And when you make a call, what determines which cell site your phone is using?
When your phone's powered on and it's connected to the network, but it's not actively on a call, it's in what we like to call an idle state. And in this idle state, the phone is constantly scanning the network and it's searching for that cell site with the best signal. Because when a call initiates, it's going to initiate on that cell site with the best signal. Now, there's two primary factors that determine what is that best serving cell site. The first is proximity. Generally speaking, the closer my phone is to a particular cell site, the stronger that signal is going to be, because a radio frequency loses strength as it travels over distance. The second factor is clear line of sight. If there's a mountain between my phone and the nearest cell site, there's a good chance the mountain will block the signal. Big piles of dirt are good at blocking radio frequency. Things like buildings, vehicles, and even trees can affect clear line of sight, but it's to a much lesser extent. So again, most often your phone's choosing the nearest, or if not the nearest, another nearby cell site. The network isn't intended for your phone to leapfrog over 4 cell sites to use one on the other side of town when there's others that are closer by with a better signal.
And Special Agent Putman, are you familiar with the records kept by cellular providers, specifically Verizon and T-Mobile?
Yes.
And what records do they keep?
All the cell phone providers maintain records in support of running their business. This can include financial records, kind of like the bill you might receive every month. They also maintain more technical records, engineering records that they use to support running their operations. One set of records that's useful to law enforcement are referred to as call detail records. Call detail records contains information about a specific phone number, and it's line-by-line details that includes the dates and times of communications, as well as the cell site and sector that this communication's initiated on. So for example, if you obtain my call detail records, maybe you'd see I placed a call at 5 p.m. yesterday, and it initiated on cell site 123, sector 1. I can now refer to the second set of records maintained by the providers that's useful to law enforcement, and that's referred to as the cell site list. Cell site list is just information about the provider's network, and more specifically, it's the locations of all the cell sites in latitude, longitude coordinates, as well as the directions that the sectors face. So in this example, I placed a call at 5 p.m. yesterday, used cell site 123, sector 1. I can now refer to the cell site list, and maybe I see that cell site 123 is at a latitude, longitude coordinate in Raleigh, North Carolina, and sector 1 faces 0 degrees due north. I can now go to a map, find the location of that cell site. I know the antenna is facing north, so I can get an idea of the general area that my phone would have been in when that call occurred at 5 p.m. yesterday. Now there's a third set of records that's sometimes available, and it's referred to as timing advance. I say sometimes available because the providers don't retain those records as long as call detail records. So if they aren't obtained fast enough, you might not get them. Timing advance is very similar to call detail records in that it's for a specific phone number. It includes dates, times, cell site, and sector, but it also includes a distance measurement. And that's the approximate distance that the phone would have been from the cell site at the time of that record. So if we go back to the pizza example, with a call detail record, I can tell you the approximate slice of pizza that the phone is in. With a timing advance record, I can tell you how far from the center the phone would have been. So maybe where the cheese meets the crust. So you just get more precise location information, and timing advance happens just because the phone is on and connected to the network. It does not rely on anyone actually doing anything on the phone. It could just be sitting in their pocket or sitting on a desk somewhere.
Did you have an opportunity to examine these records from Verizon and T-Mobile that were sent to you by the Orange County Sheriff's Office in this case?
Yes.
And I'll note for the record, those records have been received into evidence as States Exhibits 134 and 136 by stipulation. Would you please describe for the jury the process that you use when you receive those records?
Yes, I took the call detail records and timing advance records for the phone numbers that were given to me, and I just married those up with the cell site list and depicted the locations of those cell sites, and when available, the timing advance distances. I depicted that visually in a report.
And were you able to create both a report and a digital presentation to memorialize your findings?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Special Agent Putman, I'll show you what I've marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 144 and ask you if you recognize it.
Yes, this is a copy of the report that I produced for this case.
And does it appear to be a complete and accurate copy of your report?
It does.
All right, this time I would move States 144 into evidence.
Any objection? No objection. States 144, the CAS report will be admitted into evidence.
Thank you. And Special Agent Putman, did you also create a PowerPoint presentation to memorialize these findings?
Yes.
And is that presentation identical to State's Exhibit 144?
Yes.
And can you use this digital presentation to illustrate your findings to the jury?
Yes.
All right, this time I would request if I could publish the PowerPoint version of the presentation. I have it pulled up already.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, DA, just so I can clarify, States 144, you're going to show it in PowerPoint form.
Yes, thank you. All right, Special Agent Putman, I've got States 144 up on the screen. Can you describe for the jury what we're seeing here on the first page?
Yes, page 1 is just the cover page of the report. It shows that I produced this and that it is for the two phone numbers listed, 743-244-0344, a Verizon phone number. You may notice it's highlighted in red. Records throughout the report that are in red will correspond to this phone number. The second phone number is 908-440-5523 in green. And that is a T-Mobile phone number. Same thing with this one. Any records that are green will correspond to this phone number.
Thank you. And advancing to the second slide.
Page 2 is just an explanation of the methodology used. It's kind of what I already explained. I took the call detail records and the timing advance records, combined that with the cell site list, and just depicted that information visually on maps in this report.
And how about page number 3?
Page 3 on the left is a picture of a 3-sector tower. This is that big industrial looking structure version. If you haven't noticed them before, you'll probably see them on the side of the road all the time now. You may notice at the top there's a triangle shape. Those are just the 3 sets of antennas pointing in different directions. On the right is an overhead view of how that sectorization may be depicted. In this example, sector 1 is facing 0 degrees, which is north. Sector 2 is facing 120 degrees, and Sector 3 is facing 240 degrees. And it kind of looks like that pizza example that I was explaining. They don't always orient the same way, but this is just one example. And so for example, in this case, if a phone was in that red shaded area, most often or more often than not, it would be using that Sector 1 on the tower. Now, one thing I didn't explain is the size of the coverage area. How far out does it go? Really depends on the other cell sites in the provider's network. If you're somewhere like Manhattan with just a lot of people, a lot of phones, those cell sites are going to be closer together to handle that volume of phone users. If you go more rural, then the cell sites will be more spread out, and so be larger possible coverage areas for each cell site.
And advancing to slide 4.
Page 4 shows how a call detail record will be depicted in my report. On the left is a similar graphic to what we saw on that last page, that overhead view. This time there's a 120 degree wedge with that shaded semicircular area on it facing north. That's just indicating the direction that that sector is facing. On the right is how it will actually look in the report. It'll be overlaid on a map, kind of like you would see with Google Maps. Now I want to point out that shaded semicircular area is just helping identify the direction that the sector is facing. It does not mean the phone is in that shaded area. It could be, but that's not what it indicates. At the base of that wedge is a red dot, and there's another red dot in the lower right-hand corner. Those are just cell sites in that provider's network. Remember, it's important to understand which cell sites were used, but also which ones were not used, which ones exist, because that gives us an idea of the size of the coverage areas.
And looking at slide number 5 regarding the timing advance.
So page 5 shows how timing advance is depicted in my report. On the left is similar to what we saw on that last page, except this time we have a shaded band. And if you look closely, there's a little phone inside there. So that represents the approximate distance that the phone would have been from the cell site. So maybe it's 1 mile, and that distance would be 1 mile. Now you see those 2 arrows going to the phone and back. What this represents is how timing advance is calculated. Timing advance is just a network measurement, and it's taking the time it takes for a signal to travel from the cell site to the phone and back. So time of travel is known. The speed is the speed of light, so that doesn't change. So with time and speed, you can calculate approximate distance that that signal traveled, which equates to the approximate distance that the phone would have been from the cell site. On the right, again, is how it will look in the report. It'll be overlaid on a map. So the conclusions we can draw from this is that the phone is in or around that shaded band. So it's just a little bit more precision there. Now, it's not necessarily always in that shaded band. It could be outside of it, but it's usually within 1 or 2 kind of layers of those bands.
And slide number 6.
Every time there's a record in the report, there will be corresponding details in an event box. And so at the top is, if there's a call detail record, it shows some of the details that will be associated with it. There'll be the cell site identifier, which phone number that record is attributed to, the date, time, the type of call, if it's incoming or outgoing, the duration of the call in seconds, and then the other phone number on that call. So for instance, right here we see at 10:25 and 26 seconds PM, there's an incoming call, it's 25 seconds in duration, and it's from that 910 number. Also, if multiple sectors are used on a cell site in a given page, then I'll make clear which sector each record corresponds to. So for example, that first one says 180 degrees. There would be a south-facing sector that record would be for. Below that shows how timing advance records, the details that you get with it. Some of the same information with cell site identifier, the mapped phone number, date, time, but now we also have a distance measurement. And again, that's the approximate distance from the cell site to the phone.
And in slide number 7, we see a map. What's depicted on this map?
Page 7 is just a location overview. These are location markers that were provided to me by the investigators. So these are relevant locations that I was asked to map the records in relation to. These aren't locations that I determined based on any independent investigation. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see a legend. Most of these are in and around the Mebane area. We'll see on the next couple pages a more zoomed-in view of that. But the locations include a green marker with initials IR for the Issiah Ross residence. There's a red marker with initials DC for the Devin Clark residence. A purple marker with initials LW for the Lyric Woods residence. A yellow marker with initials CS for the crime scene. A blue marker with initials PT for the Petro Travel Center. And then finally, a bus stop, the orange marker with initials BS, that is the bus stop in Raleigh.
And what are we looking at in slide number 8?
Page 8 shows a zoomed in view of the location markers that are in and around the Mebane area. Same location markers, but now we see a bunch of red dots on the map. And all those dots represent our cell sites in Verizon's network.
And what about on page 9?
Page 9 is very similar to page 8. We're now just looking at green dots that represent cell sites in T-Mobile's network.
And page 10?
Page 10 is the first page where we're looking at records being depicted on the map for one of the phones. And we can see at the top, it's for the number ending in 0344, the Verizon number. The records occurred on September 17, 2022, between 1:12 a.m. and 1:21 a.m. And the conclusion we can draw from this is that the phone is consistent with being in the area of the Devin Clark residence. If you look at the upper right-hand corner, the event box there's numerous records between 1:12 and 1:21 a.m. using that cell site. And those timing advance bands intersect or overlap with right around where the Devin Clark residence is. Also below that is another cell site showing that at 1:15 a.m. there's another timing advance record, and that intersects in the area consistent with the Devin Clark residence. Now, when you have intersecting timing advance bands from different cell sites that are occurring right around the same time, you look at where both of those timing advance bands are, because that's where the phone is. And so now we're using lateration methods to locate the phone. So you look at the intersection point, and those intersect right in an area near the Devin Clark residence.
Before we leave this slide, the record at the bottom of the page is using a different cell site than the top of the page. Why would that be?
Yeah, so with calls, your phone's choosing the cell site with the best signal. That's not necessarily the case with timing events. Timing events just has to be from a cell site that is strong enough to sustain that measurement. It's not necessarily from the cell site with the best signal. So oftentimes with timing advance records, we'll see multiple cell sites logging those records.
And what are we looking at on page number 11?
Page 11 is a similar time frame, but it's for the phone ending in 5523, the T-Mobile phone. It's from 1:12 a.m. until 1:24 a.m. If you first begin at the bottom left-hand corner, there are 4 records at 1:12 and 1:13 a.m. And the timing advance band overlaps with the Issiah Ross residence. Now, based solely on those records, we can determine that the phone is in or around that timing advance band. However, we also have another record just above it at 1:14 a.m. from a different cell site. And you can look and see where that timing advance band overlaps. And so there's a little bit of time between the record at 1:13 and 44 seconds a.m. and 1:14 and 22 seconds a.m. A little bit of time for the phone to travel, but we'd still look closer to where those timing advance bands intersect because the phone can only travel so far in 40 seconds. After that, on the right-hand side at 1:19 a.m., we can now definitively say that the phone has traveled. It's moved east into the Mebane area. And then at the top, at 1:23 and 1:24 a.m., we have records that would be consistent with the Devin Clark residence. Now, one thing I can't tell you is the exact location of the phone in terms of a street address or a street corner, but just the general area that the phone could have been in, and if that includes any relevant locations. So again, at 1:23 and 1:24, we know that the phone is in or around those timing advance bands, but those bands overlap with the Devin Clark residence, so that is a location that the phone could have been.
And what are we looking at on page 12?
Page 12 moves forward about 15 minutes. This covers from 1:39 a.m. until 2:42 a.m. and is for the red Verizon phone ending in 0344. At the top right, we can see that there are records at 1:39 and 1:40 a.m. Also at the bottom left, we have a record at 1:39 a.m. And that measurement is 1.7 miles. That's that furthest out timing advance band. So what we're looking at around 1:39 a.m. is those 2 timing advance bands that are intersecting. One of those intersection points is near the Lyric Woods residence. The other one is a little bit northwest of there. So at that moment in time, with just those records, we know the phone is in or around one of those intersection points. At 1:42 a.m., and I'm looking at the bottom left-hand corner, the distance measurement goes from 1.7 to 0.73 miles. It's still that 60 degrees northeast facing sector. So the phone has traveled closer to that cell site now. That's that shallower timing advance band that's still facing northeast. And then from 1:45 until 2:42 a.m., there are 61 timing advance records that are using that 300-degree northwest facing sector. And those are those bands that are intersecting or overlapping with the crime scene. So from 1:45 to 2:42 a.m., we have that high volume of timing advance records that's consistent with the phone being stationary somewhere in that area, and that area includes the crime scene. One other thing to note in the upper left-hand corner in the legend is that the last evidence of connection to the network for this phone was at 2:44 and 16 seconds a.m. Meaning after that point, I just have no evidence in the records of any connection to the cellular network. There's no cell site info to go with that.
And taking a look at slide 13.
Page 13 begins at around the same time, but it ends a little bit sooner than that last one. Page 12 went until 2:42 a.m. Page 13 is 1:39 until 2:14 a.m. And it's for the T-Mobile phone ending in 5523. Beginning at the top, there's a record at 1:40 a.m. And also on the lower left, we see 5 records between 1:39 and 1:41 a.m. And they all have distance measurements of 1.6 or 1.65 and 1.7 miles. So that record at the top and those 5 in the lower left-hand corner, those are those records that are intersecting at a point a little bit south of the Woods residence there. So at that time, at 1:39, which is consistent with what we saw on the last page, is that we'd expect the phone to be near the Woods residence. At 1:42 a.m. and 59 seconds, there's a distance measurement of 0.53 miles, still from that northeast-facing sector, or more east-facing sector. That's showing the phone travel closer to the base of that cell site. And at 1:45 until 2:14 a.m., there are 13 timing advance records. And those are records that are consistent with the area in or around the crime scene. We also have 3 calls during that time at 1:49.
And how about on slide 14?
So on page 12, the Verizon phone was stationary. It didn't move from that location until 2:42 a.m., and then we saw a lack of evidence of any connection to the network. With the T-Mobile phone ending in 5523, it doesn't just stay stationary, it has moved. And so at the top, we can see between 2:20 and 2:29 a.m., there are 14 timing advance records that are consistent with an area that would include the Petro Travel Center, meaning that is a location that the phone could have been. It's definitely traveled north from where it was before. And then after that, between 2:36 and 2:50 a.m., the phone has since returned south to an area that would be consistent with the crime scene. And we have 17 timing advance records in that approximately 14-minute time frame.
And then how about on slide 15?
Page 15 moves forward to the next day. This is September 18th, between 8:01 p.m. and 10:02 p.m. It's for the T-Mobile phone ending in 5523. There are about 2 hours of records between 8:01 and 10:02 p.m. showing activity consistent with that bus stop. There are also 4 calls that we have activity for during that time frame.
And how about slide 16?
Page 16 continues where we left off at 10:02 p.m. Again, it's for the T-Mobile phone ending in 5523. And you can see at the bottom, there's that record at 10:02. And then as you move northeast, there's a record on September 19th at 12:35 a.m. And then finally, also on the 19th at 7:04 a.m. in Delaware.
And is that the end of your report?
Yes.
I just want to go back to what you were discussing on page 12 regarding the last connection for the phone number ending 0344. If a phone is on, would it still show data?
So the reason that there may be no evidence of connection with the network, really it's because the Verizon doesn't see the phone anymore. Now, it could be because the phone was turned off, it ran out of battery, it was put on airplane mode, it was destroyed, it was put in a thick metal box and the Verizon network just can't see it, or maybe just went somewhere very rural where Verizon couldn't see the phone. Either way, Verizon doesn't see the phone anymore. It doesn't exist to Verizon anymore.
If I could have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Special Agent Putman, prior to completing your report, did you generate a draft report?
I did.
And is it possible that there's a page of data missing from your final report?
I'd have to review my draft report to confirm.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
And I'll mark this as states 145. May I approach the court reporter to borrow her stapler?
You may.
Special Agent Putman, I'll show you what's been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibit 145. And do you recognize States 145?
It appears to be a draft report I produced in this case.
And I was looking at specifically page 20 in your draft report. If you would take a look at that.
Yes.
Now that data does not appear in your final report? Was that by accident or on purpose?
When I originally created the draft report is in 2022. As this date came closer, I revised it to clean it up a little bit, something that commonly do. And to make an official report, I have another CAS agent peer review it. So this page does not appear in my final report. I don't recall if we had a conversation about whether this time frame was relevant or not.
What time frame is that?
It is September 17th, 2022, from 3:09 a.m. until 3:10 a.m.
And which phone number is it for?
The green T-Mobile number ending in 5523.
And do you recall, well, in producing your draft report, are you looking at the same data that you used in producing your final report?
Yes.
And what can you describe about the location of the 5523 phone in that time frame?
I should say this hasn't been peer reviewed by another CAS agent, but the records are very consistent with the phone being in or and around the Issiah Ross residence.
Thank you. If I could have just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have for Special Agent Putman. Thank you.
Cross.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Officer Putman.
Good afternoon.
Maybe we'll work our way backwards a little bit. So when you get this information from Verizon and T-Mobile, you don't request it yourself. It's given to you by law enforcement. Is that right?
Yes, typically there's an investigation that's already began without me, and records have been obtained by the primary investigating agency, and they just request that I produce a report, and they provide me the records and any other relevant information like timeframes and locations.
Then when reviewing these records, you mentioned you had relationships with these different cell phone providers, and so that you are knowledgeable about what they mean, what they say, if there's any difference in time frame, whether it's UTC or Eastern Standard Time, so on and so forth?
Yes, we have regular discussions with the major cell phone providers, and we go through all that information in terms of different time zones that they use, depending on the provider and the type of record.
And when reviewing those records, you're able to determine that this is, I guess, the full record or everything you need, or do you ever have to follow back up with law enforcement to make sure that there isn't anything missing or that there are gaps?
Sometimes maybe I only get call detail records, and I know based on the relevant time frame that timing advance is still available. And so I may go back to the investigating agency and make sure that in their legal process that they serve, that they ask for a timing advance, because that's more useful than just call detail records. So sometimes I do ask them to go back and get more information.
And after, in this particular case, you went through and you had the call detail records, the timing advance records, and then you took that information and put it in a visual form like we saw with the map and the little sectors. Is that right?
Yes.
And you mentioned after you were done, you would then submit your draft to another colleague to kind of double check that you had done everything accurately and according to your policies. Is that right?
Yes, if a case is going to trial, then we get another CAS agent to peer review our work. They go through the records hand by hand and also using a separate tool than I would have used, and make sure that everything's mapped correctly, that only reliable records are used. They look for things like typos, anything that maybe need to be investigated in a peer review.
And the report that we just viewed was 17 pages, the final draft.
Yes, the final peer-reviewed report was 17 pages.
But the draft that was just discussed that had these other calculations on it was 23 pages.
Yes.
was that you that reduced the report from 23 to 17, or was this the individual who helped peer review or look at it afterwards?
Some of that was just making it easier to understand. When I first do a report, sometimes I'm moving quick on it just because of volume of work. And I'm trying to get something out there so the investigators can understand what they're working with. And if it goes to trial, I sometimes will go in and refine it a little bit, because my goal is to make the information as clear and as possible as to what the phones are doing. And if I can do that in less pages, then I'll opt to do that.
But in addition to reducing the number of pages from 23 to 17, there was actual information in this draft, in this initial draft, that did not make its way to the final draft. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a time frame after both the phones were in and around the area of the crime scene that just was not included in the final report. I don't recall if I had discussion with investigators or prosecution about whether that was still relevant or not. Sometimes that conversation takes place, and I don't need to get everything peer reviewed, because if I can have less burden on the peer reviewer, then I'll do that.
And so to be clear, at least on that page that we're referring to, that page of the 3:09 to 3:10 a.m. was not peer reviewed, and that's why it didn't make its way into the final draft.
Correct.
Okay. Now you were talking about the signals and the cell towers and how they all, how you use that information to create this draft. So in order for a phone to make its way onto this draft, it first must send a signal. Is that correct?
Kind of, it depends on the records. There has to be a connection between the phone and the cellular and the private record to law enforcement. If the phone's turned off, then there will just be no cell site information because the network won't see the phone.
But if the phone is turned off, it can't send a signal. Is that correct?
Right. Essentially, the antenna is off then, and so the network can't see the antenna on the phone.
And when the phone's on airplane mode, it can't send a signal, right?
Correct.
All right. But the phone itself doesn't need to be actively doing something. I don't need to call someone to send a signal to any of these cell towers. Is that right?
For a voice call detail record, there needs to be an incoming or outgoing call. For timing advance, it can happen because of calls, text, data activity, or just network measurements. So really the way of saying timing advance, why records would be there, is just being on and connected to the network. If the phone's on and connected to the network, we should have timing advance records.
All right. And so when you say that there is activity, somebody could be getting a message on Facebook or something. They may not actively be doing anything, but their cell phone is kind of receiving information, and that is what helps connect it to those towers. Is that right?
Right. For timing advance records, your phone could be sitting at home all day and you're not near it, and there should still be timing advance records if it's on and connected to the network. You don't have to be doing anything on the phone.
And in the event that you don't actually have a cell record, an incoming, outgoing phone call, or maybe a text message, you may not know how the phone was being used, but you do know that it was sending signal in that location. Is that right?
Kind of, yeah. If there's outgoing calls, then someone's definitely doing something on the phone. If there's incoming calls that appear to have been answered, then it looks like someone answered the phone. But if it's incoming and just goes to voicemail, then again, no one had to be doing anything with the phone for it to go to voicemail. Also with data session records, data sessions happen because of internet and application usage. You can look at the bytes that are being transmitted between the phone and the network to try to determine if anyone's doing anything on the phone. But that's getting in the weeds a little bit. I think to really answer your question is it depends on the records and what evidence is there. You can kind of determine if someone's doing anything on the phone or if there's no evidence that they're doing anything on the phone.
And this information doesn't necessarily show who was using the phone or who had the phone, just that the phone itself was in that location. Is that correct?
Right. The records don't explicitly say John Doe placed the call at 5 p.m. There's no name in there. You can look at things like subscriber information or pattern of life to build evidence of who has the phone, but it doesn't explicitly say who's using it at any given time.
And you were talking about the number ending in 0344, and that the last signal that was received from that phone was at 2:42 a.m. on September the 17th. Is that correct?
So the last evidence that it was connected to the network was at 2:44 and 16 seconds. I believe the last cell site record that there's a time advance record at 2:42 and 37 seconds a.m. But after that 2:44 and 16 second mark, there's no evidence in the records that it's connected to the network.
And that could indicate multiple things. Either the phone was turned off or it was just put in a position where it was no longer sending or receiving signal from cell towers. Is that right?
Right. If it was somewhere very rural, it's possible that'd be out of connection with the network. I think that's probably more unlikely, just given where it is at 2:42 a.m. and its proximity to the nearest cell site. However, it could have been dropped into a metal box, it destroyed, turned off, ran out of battery, put on airplane mode. Any of those reasons could be why it lost connection with the network.
But according to your mapping, the last location or sector would have been in or around, however you describe it as CS, or which is the crime scene. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that would have been on, according to this map, Buckhorn Road. Is that right? Or in that vicinity?
Yes.
And this information, this data doesn't, you say, give us an exact address or pinpoint, like we could just drop a dime and say it's here, but it says it's kind of in this area, right?
That's right. The general area, the size of which depends on the type of record we have. If it's timing events, how close to the cell site, is it intersecting with multiple cell sites? All that affects it, but yes, I can't tell you the exact location in terms of a latitude, longitude, and within 10 meters or anything to that level of precision.
And the timing advance on here shows it was a little less than half a mile from the center of that tower. Is that right?
Yes, the timing advance measurements were 0.39 and 0.44 miles.
One moment, Judge.
Yes, sir.
No further questions from this witness, Judge.
All right, redirect.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, may we excuse the special agent at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Special agent, thank you for being with us. You're going to be excused from your subpoena obligations.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're right there at 5 o'clock. So I'm going to release you back out into the world. Please remember all of my instructions. You guys can talk to each other about anything you want, except this case. Remember, as you go home, just as you've been under that special jury bubble that continues tonight, you can't talk to your friends, your family, that neighbor down the street, anybody about this case, except to let them know you're still on this jury. 3, no encyclopedias, all right? And no other independent investigation of any type about anything dealing with this trial. And lastly, remember again, keep your minds open. You haven't heard all of the evidence. You haven't heard the arguments of counsel, and you do not know the law that you're going to need to apply to this case, all right? So with that, everybody else, please remain seated. You all leave your notebooks in your chairs, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, 9:30. All right, all of our jurors have left the courtroom. Madam DA, one witness left? Two witnesses left. Yes, all right. So, Mr. Trapp, again, if y'all will be prepared tomorrow to, assuming that the state survives the motion to dismiss, address the issue of what the defense is going to do about the defendant testifying, Mr. Ross testifying, or about presenting any other evidence.
Yes, Your Honor, we will be ready.
And just so I can check, Mr. Trapp, you didn't submit a witness list, but I know when we started this trial, you indicated that the only person on your list is the defendant. Is that still correct?
That is still our list. That's correct.
All right, sounds good. Anything else that we need to address before we adjourn this evening?
No, Your Honor.
Not at this time, Judge.
All right, the only other thing, we had one other bench trial. I think I didn't, I called everybody up to the bench. Mr. Trapp was asking the sergeant about whether his client had made any statements. I brought everybody forward because we're getting close to that line. The state is never allowed to talk about whether the defendant invoked his right to counsel or his right not to make a statement. I had counsel come up so that we could talk about whether those questions Mr. Tripp was asking would open the door for those sort of questions, and I generally do not like that. Mr. Trapp indicated that was not his intent, to open the door to that sort of questioning, and so I think you just adjusted your questions a little bit to avoid that possibility.
That's correct, Judge. I actually just went to a whole new line of questioning.
Yes, because that is a dangerous place to go. So I think that encapsulates what we did at the bench.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. If nothing else, then we'll be in recess until 9:30 tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Recess till 9:30 tomorrow.
I might see if I can come
Yes,
see you
sir.
after you.
Oh, yeah. Wait, before we go off the record, I apologize.